On the morning of Simchat Torah, Israel woke up to a missile attack. There were wounded. A family driving in Sderot on the morning of Simchat Torah couldn't have imagined being prey to Hamas terrorists. The terrorists, who had invaded the city just minutes earlier, shot the passing car, and the family split up. The wounded father took his 3-year-old daughter in his hands and ran in one direction. The mother held on to her 6-year-old daughter and ran the other way. The terrorists were still at the roundabout when the MDA ambulance drove by them. They were able to shoot at the ambulance. Amit and Elor, an MDA medic, was hit in his back.
מוקד מלאכי 1776 מחבלים בתוך שדרות, ירו עלינו, נפגענו ליד צומת הכניסה, ליד תחנת הרכבת. העוזר שלי, לאכי 1776 מחבלים בתוך שדרות.
A citizen passing by noticed the girls and mother and took them to the city's police station. But he didn't know that Hamas had already taken control of the police station. The terrorists shot the citizen and the mother. The girls were left behind alone, witnessing the horror. Another citizen notices the wounded father and takes him to an MDA station. Elor and Amit begin to treat and rescue the wounded on a road where 20 Sderot residents were killed and many were wounded. Elor and Amit drove to the hospital witnessing the horrors. Bodies in vehicles and all along the deadly road. Sounds of artillery and AK-47s all around. Elor drove fast and notices people leaving a synagogue. He warns them about the terrorists. Meanwhile, they receive a message from dispatch about the Hamas terrorists approaching the MDA station itself.
מגיע אליך כרגע 1376, חננאל ירוי, מחבלים ירו בו. בסדר? אתה יכול לצאת אליו, אנחנו מנסים לשלוח אליך צוות כי יורים גם על תחנת שדרות.
MDA teams with IDF soldiers get everybody there inside the station and keep the doors closed. Outside, MDA people with weapons blocked the entrance, hoping not to run into the terrorists. The terrorists drove by the MDA station, but they were confused as to their target and did not attack. And for a while, they were out of danger. MDA teams treat the many wounded that arrive at the station. Dispatch reports that Hananel was being treated at the house of Aviv, a Sderot paramedic, and must be transferred to the hospital. He was severely wounded, and time was not in his favor. When Elor and Amit arrived, they didn't know that terrorists were just at the street corner looking for more victims. The team put the wounded Hananel in their ambulance with the wounded father they took earlier. The 4 rushed to the hospital. Terrorists and rocket fire on the way. On the way, they drove through the road of death once again, discovering that Hamas murdered 14 elderly women, all with multiple gunshot wounds. They were on the ground, without a pulse and not breathing. There was no one to save. They had no choice but to continue to the hospital. Amit and Elor took the wounded to the hospital, and on the way back, they ran into a Yamam team. The Yamam team members told them to drive to the Shar HaNegev junction, where an intense battle with terrorists was underway. When they reached there, they heard shooting from everywhere. Elor noticed a foreign worker wounded in a vehicle, and a soldier with a gunshot wound in his leg. He took them into the ambulance, where Amit treated them. The two drove to the Sderot MDA station to pick up more wounded. And for hours, they transferred people to the hospital. One of them they picked up was a young woman who was hurt by shrapnel. Elor asked her to close her eyes so she wouldn't see the horrible sights and the bodies along the streets. They were called to the Hamas-controlled Sderot police station, where a heavy firefight with the terrorists was taking place. The Yamam team lowered 2 of their wounded using a fire truck ladder and asked Elor and Amit to treat them. They were severely wounded, suffering from gunshot wounds. Elor and Amit immediately started treating them and took them to the hospital. The sounds of shooting were endless. After 17 hours of treating the wounded and successfully avoiding terrorist gunfire, Elor and Amit finished their watch, trying to comprehend what they've seen, heard, and how lucky they were the whole time, keeping out of sight of Hamas terrorists.